Hi friends, host Eric here, host Talking with Famous People. I've been watching this Campus Indoctrination Parrotization of Myth video by Jordan Peterson. I think it's interesting. I kept wanting to sort of nutshell it, what his point was, sort of be able to summarize as best I could. I took a lot of notes on it. This lecture of his is basically a rejection of relativism. It's a rejection of particular manifestations of it in the form of Marxism and neo-Marxism. It's a rejection of the postmodernists, Foucault, Deirdre, somebody like Zizek as well. He didn't mention him, but and I think he does a good job of articulating, in some part of this, what's wrong with the postmodernists, namely that they attribute to all structures a motivational source, namely that power structures exist to sustain power structures, and that's it. Of course, as Jordan Peterson says, is ridiculous to reduce some complex system like that to such a single variant explanation, and it's absurd. But ultimately, even that's not the problem. Ultimately, from my perspective, and Jordan Peterson and I are very similar in our perspectives, but I think one difference is I'm possibly more optimistic than he is. I think there's a solution already in place, and we just need to start. I think it will do its own thing. The basic gist of this video is at the end he says there is a duty we each have to accept that we are fundamentally corrupt and vulnerable, that at any given moment we could be the one who is helpless, and that at any given moment we could be the one who succumbs to some sort of moral challenge and falls short of that moral challenge. And that I heard him in another video say, if we can picture ourselves in the role of the concentration camp doing horrible things to the Jews, and really put ourselves in that place and understand how we could even not only do it but get pleasure out of it, we understand what it means to be human. And I understand what that means as well. I have my own experience in childhood of bullying as well as being bullied, and I know this sort of sickly sweet pleasure that one gets out of cruelty. It's certainly possible for each of us to get that pleasure. He says, become wise and alert, and that the problem is a lack of self-respect, that people don't respect themselves enough to be vulnerable, basically. And I would agree that that's a big problem. It's what I would call stubbornness. I think one of the best things he says here is a resistance of polarization, political polarization. He does come off a lot as a conservative voice in his critique of the left. And I would say that he's wise to try to back away from that a bit, because the problem, of course, isn't the left per se, and the problem isn't even this indulgence of bad ideologies, or ideologies in general. He asked what the distinction between a philosophy and an ideology is, and my answer to that is pretty straightforward. A philosophy is one that is self-correcting against a standard outside of the philosophy, and additionally is less used to justify action as it is to critique it, is another element of it. He doesn't give a clear, obvious definition that I heard. I did skip around some parts, but it's a distinction that's, I guess, worth making. At the end of the day, what I think about this video, what I think about all of this kind of stuff in general, what I think about the radical left, campus indoctrination, what I think about the radical right, what I think about people with ideologies, is the answer is not some middle ground compromise. The answer is not this ideology or that ideology either. The answer is a shift from a focus of it's all about conclusions to a focus that's all about means, the means of discourse. What I have as a goal for this channel and my ability to disseminate information is to promote the notion that it doesn't matter how bad your idea is. It doesn't matter how bad your conclusion is. It doesn't matter how racist you are, long as you're willing to talk it out. And the reason is because there is an answer to the confliction between relativists and postmodernists on one side, and absolutist principalists on the other side. And the compromise ground is rhetorical slope. So the relativists say, well, nothing's absolutely true. Language is static. It's used for reasons. It doesn't just contain locutionary meaning. It contains illocutionary meaning. The postmodernists want to reject the locutionary meaning in favor of the illocutionary meaning. But they make all kinds of crazy assumptions about how they can deduce illocutionary meaning from outcome. They basically make a post hoc ergo propter hoc fallacy. So the relativists are wrong. Now the absolutist principalists are also wrong, because we know that, in fact, language is too inflexible to adequately deal with the particulars of reality as it fluidly goes by on a regular basis. That we can critique proposed ideas much more successfully. We can critique conditionally with absolute certainty. We can be right about the manifestation of that critique in the real world with a lot less certainty. So, it's why people who are TI users, unlike Jordan Peterson, who's evidently a TE user, we tend to prioritize the discursive process and tentative conclusions. Now, Jordan Peterson also is alarmed and annoyed by unwillingness of the other party to engage in discourse, but he frames it as a TE kind of a thing. He says, well, we need the marketplace of ideas to distinguish between these different ideas. And that's basically the same thing I'm getting at, except I would say it's not justified because of the marketplace of ideas. It's saying it's implicit to the grammar of human decision making, and the biggest problem is a failure to distinguish between the metaphysical and physical worlds. So
but he can't say that.
Why not?
Here's what's interesting about you. He is for honesty and argumentation, and tells you to become good at it and to weaponize yourself with it, and that he's in the fight of having battles on campus and stuff. So he's actually trying to get people to sign up for the cause who has not thought about it. I mean, you're in the top 1% of 1% that's thought about. You're somebody who's watching this and not gaining a whole lot of new perspective on something.
That's true.
It's why you were gonna record everything before you thought you were gonna die. Obviously, one part of you knew that you had explored things deep enough. Like you know things.
I didn't know. I was unable to position my own thinking against anything else. I was operating so much in a vacuum that I didn't know the state of affairs in general regarding thinking or anything. I didn't think about it in those terms, really. I just thought that I'm putting a lot of years into thinking about this shit. I might as well get it all down. Maybe I'll figure it all out.
Well, you put a lot of years in thinking about it, and what he does, what was interesting about you is how you skipped ahead so much because nothing was really popping out to you as like, all right, you could have said this in a lot less. In a nutshell. It's
right.
Like you're an outlier like a motherfucker on that.
Well, I mean, I get that you want a thoroughness of... He's building a defensible case. So he's providing information more than what is necessary to make his point, because he's building a defensible case and trying to explain things thoroughly and support it and stuff like that. I guess my general point is...
And he's linking things... People don't link things together as well as...
I mean,
especially you, me as well. I don't see the... I mean, he's creating a map of something bigger.
Eric.
Hey, Graham.
I think I should move the car in.
Okay. So, you want me to move my car? It's only 6:30.
Yeah, I know, but we're laying down and I might get too comfortable.
Okay, well, can you ask Kimberly to move the car?
Okay.
Because I'm in the middle of making a video.
Okay. Is it cool if I hold on to this? I don't think I'll need it because I think I already got used to it, but yeah.
So, I guess my point about all this is the answer is very simple. if you engage in a merit-based discursive process with these people, they will get embarrassed if you know what you're doing, because they're arguing things that have very steep rhetorical slopes against them. In other words, they're arguing things that require each party to suspend reciprocal burdens and say, oh, we don't have to apply the rules that you're applying here anyplace else to judge their equivalency. The problem is, if you start asking them questions and they give answers, you will get them twisted up in knots in no time. The problem is they don't like to sit there and be pinned down, but the thing is, ultimately, good arguments win and bad arguments lose the more those arguments get to be had.
Well, but kinda.
Not kinda.
Well, maybe on a grand scale, but on an individual basis where you're interacting with people, there's a reason that Benjamin Franklin said appeal to interest rather than reason.
Oh, that's what I'm doing. I'm saying you appeal to interest by making their usage of bad arguments painful.
But then all it does is make them squirm, and you're not getting anywhere.
It makes them change their argument.
When have you heard that happen?
People do not make the same bad argument multiple times in a row if they got embarrassed with it once.
Your car's in front.
I think they just don't make the attempt to try and make an argument as much as actually contemplate an alternative viewpoint.
Well, look, that's the thing. That's where my point is. How does one deal with ideology without becoming ideological oneself? One focuses instead of on the conclusions, which conclusions are right or wrong. One focuses on how you reach those conclusions. So, my perspective is simply this: that if we acknowledge the difference between the metaphysical and physical worlds, that solves half of the problems right there, because then we understand what kind of claims one can make upon another person physically, what kind of claims one can make on another person metaphysically, and how and when one justify the other. We have to actually talk about it in terms of real terms. We can't just constantly conflate the two and argue against each other, past each other. I agree that we have a moral imperative, and I don't think that negating statements of the truth of that moral imperative is not a bad thing to do, but it empowers the frame that says there's no moral imperative. I mean, it's as simple as, oh, you don't believe in morality? Okay, well, I'm going to kill you and your family right now, okay? Well, why is it wrong? Oh, you believe in self-interest. So it's okay if I kill his family because you don't know? You'd be fine with standing there and watching that, clapping gleefully along with me? No. Being a metaphysical being means having in our consciousness an ability to represent other agents as factors on a field of interactive variables. There are a lot of variables within agents. There are a lot of variables outside of agents. Those things interact with each other in complicated ways. Ultimately, human ontology is an expression of our habits of how we attend to those different complexities, what we prioritize in terms of an evaluatory matrix, in terms of a descriptive matrix, in terms of a predictive matrix, in terms of a decision-making matrix. Those are all different things. I can evaluate something and come to a conclusion on it without making any decision to do something. I can make a decision to do something without going through an evaluatory process. I can make a decision to I lost my train of thought. Other shit, it's complicated. That's the point. I can reference a subjective criterion for success or an objective criterion for success. I can go against some sort of standard of validity or some sort of standard of effectiveness, and there's lots of different ways in which I can legitimize things. And so the problem is, Jordan Peterson's pointing out, there are legitimizations of bullshit that have become commonly embraced at the university level that ought not be embraced and ought not be reinforced by hiring practices that engage individuals who don't engage in proper discursive evaluation of their own perspectives. That's the critical thing. Did you engage in proper discursive practices regarding your own perspectives? If you did not, then your perspectives are not actually perspectives. They're just attachments. And the problem, Jordan Peterson wants to advocate in favor of belief as a solution, that we need to have faith in things, that we need to have faith in moral imperative of being a good person and stuff like that. I agree, but I don't even necessarily think it requires so much faith as it does honesty. It requires honesty about your own valuings and the equivalency of others.
But he says the only know you're capable of doing evil, and the only way to not do evil is to be honest.
Well, I agree with you.
There is significance in stories and narratives, and that our call to meaning is
absolutely there are. He's got an NI fascination with universal narratives or universal archetypes.
But what I'm saying was, when you're critiquing him, he doesn't necessarily he says that same thing.
I'm not necessarily even critiquing him. I'm sorry if it sounds like that. I'm drawing contrasts.
But
I'm not saying that I'm contrasting against Jordan Peterson's perspective in general. I'm contrasting against what he said in this video in general, and I'm also contrasting in order to make the distinctions visible, not necessarily to say these are mine, those are his. I try not to ascribe a lot of attachment to any statements like that, you know. I do think that he's revealing his introverted intuition with his focus on mythology and stuff. That's very Jungian. It's very much about commonalities of human experience across generations that are not particularist, that are not subjectivist in the sense of SI knowledge, you know? So I find that very interesting. I also am very narrative focused, but I'm not archetypally focused. I tend to want to create all my own narratives. I tend to want to create my own little archetypes and mythologies that go along with whatever's going on. And in fact, we all contribute to that process in the community. We have our myths. We have our larger than life stories. We've got Yalor. We've got the fiery Mepcat flames of Yalor's truth, by which I, the archpastor, can transubstantiate shit. It's not everybody has the power to transubstantiate. You have to be a Yalorian archpastor. Some people can try to transubstantiate shit, but they have to convincingly claim that they can do it. Otherwise, who's going to believe them? Thoughts? You know, I am the prince of dark arguments. It's true. That's why I just had Thanksgiving dinner with all these people here. Because, why? Somehow, without knowing at all what I was doing, I managed to achieve an outcome I didn't know I wanted. And that's what makes me the prince of dark arguments. It's not a skill. It's a habit of falling into good outcomes by focusing only on the means and never the ends. And that's my message to everybody. Fuck the ends. Means-based living. Ends don't justify the means. Means will produce the right outcomes. And, you know, be nice to each other.
The one thing he highlighted was the benefit of universal narratives rather than subjective narratives, which are inherently messy at best.
Well,
and haven't stood the test of time.
that sounds like loser talk to me.
You're so Eric.
Okay, so yeah, Yalor, the fiery Mepcast flames of Yalor's truth will burn up Jordan Peterson's Dragon of Chaos, no problem. Okay.
You gotta really get this cult concrete to the point where you can really call it a cult.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
That has to happen for you to speak in Yalorian transcendent.
You know why this will never be a cult? Because all the action is metaphysical. I don't want anybody to do anything. Cult leaders have to want people to do things. I don't even want.
You're asking people to accept the Yaylorian
I'm not.
archetype.
I'm just modeling acceptance of it. If they want to follow along, fine. I don't try to impose a lot of shoulds on people. The only should I put in front of people is
Here's what you need to do.
Put your shit out for scrutiny.
You need to teach debate at Jordan Peterson's online university.
Fuck yeah. Sure. So
You need to teach the top people that already have done a lot of groundwork work.
Fucking connect me with his ass.
You're a well, I've already thought about that.
I'd teach debate for him, no problem.
Well, your audience would be very niche, but the kind of niche audience you could impact would be a big impact, and it'd be like what they need to do the next level up, like go Super Saiyan or something. Who can actually take what you're saying and actually do something with it? It's not a lot of people.
Right. Well, the ultimate goal is to be able to have a computer program that can do everything I do as far as parsing out what the argumentation's doing. It should be possible.
Yeah, but you got to teach people to. It's a perspective that you can provide that then gets value after it's applied. Like,
right. Sure.
And it has to be pretty fluid. And
well, the thing is, I've seen people applying shit that I've either said or modeled or whatever all the time. Like not host Mark. I mean, not host Mark does it all the time. I mean, the thing is, one of the great things about argumentation is if you remember that it's always got an illocutionary purpose. Your purpose is to win, probably. Sometimes your purpose is to find the truth. Sometimes your purpose is to establish some sort of hierarchy thing. But, the thing is, as long as you remember your illocutionary purpose, that you actually have a purpose here that is not the outcome you say you want. Admit that to yourself, first and foremost, whoever you are. I have a goal here that is not what the goal I say it is. Is
your goal to teach or to show the power of certain discursive?
I mean, for me, my overarching goals are all social. It's like I want to engage with people in ways that are useful and meaningful to them because I want to be liked. I want to have experiences like tonight where I get my friends over here, Thanksgiving dinner, and they all say nice things about me. It was super nice. I feel I feel secure in my relationship. That helps too. I felt strangely like not good enough for Kimberly in general. I have this tendency to feel not good enough for Kimberly. It made me feel good enough for Kimberly. It made me feel like she's impressed with me or something or respects me or something. That I feel confident that she's not going to find somebody better. So it was really meaningful for me because, as an ENTP, and I think all ENTPs, we have a deep sense of our own emptiness. And Kimberly fills that in ways that haven't been filled before. Like I
can relate to that with Jewel, sure.
I feel a sense of wholeness that allows me to move forward on other things. My elocutionary purpose here then is to live a life where I behave as and am perceived as a good man who's trying to do God's work, so to speak. I try to avoid any kind of religious archetype stuff like that. I don't want to get into that stuff. People have all kinds of touchinesses about religion, But anyway, the slabs. Thank the slabs for making shit happen. And thanks for watching my video. It won't get 85,000 views like Jordan Peterson's, but it'll get a few. I appreciate it. Thank you, and don't forget to eat plenty of cheese. Alright, is that Jewel?
Yeah.
Alright, let's talk.